a lot of African Americans across the country was bamboozled, if you want to use the term, with some subprime loans. They got into these loans, got locked into these loans, and before they know it, it started to inflate over the years. And they lost their homes, unfortunately. But moving forward, what can African American families do to better prepare their children that's coming up, their children that's in education, that's going on to college? How can they better prepare their children?
I'm happy to answer that.
I appreciate that. I'll take the first shot at this. So I think, and this is something actually in business every day, it's a phrase I use with my team, knowledge is power. So without any question, there was a tremendous amount of dirty dealing going on. We had developers across the country becoming financial experts and selling mortgages in which they financially benefited from. And they targeted folks whose dream was to own a home. And that was tragic because folks needed to deal with the aftermath, and these developers are gone. They're not even on the scene anymore. We had mortgage companies taking advantage of opportunities for, again, capitalizing on the dream to have, people who did not think they could own a home. I believe knowledge is power. Education, education, education. Learn, and if you don't know and you don't understand, and this is, again, we use this in business every day, don't be afraid to ask and seek expertise from someone who can help you. Don't let your pride get in the way. Go ask for help and get educated so that people can't take advantage of you.
The only thing I would add to that, first of all, amen, as we said in Black Church. The only thing I would add to that is that those companies who have been found to have engaged in that kind of activity ought to be punished. Any other American who was caught running that kind of scam would be facing jail time. It's only when it happens as a white-collar crime that the people end up not being punished. Any companies that did that need to face the law, to the letter of the law. And I would add on top of that, this story that's been developing the last couple of weeks about certain companies that got caught, in these this robo activity of kicking people out of their homes without even reading the paperwork, without even doing their due diligence. Folks just being kicked out of their home by the tens of thousands. And we know what companies we're talking about here. Those companies need to be dealt with. I absolutely support all 50 attorneys general in this country who are going after these companies for what they did to these American citizens, black, white, red, brown, and yellow, so color is not an issue here. These companies ought to be dealt with. So it's not just a matter, of just raising questions after the fact. These people ought to be dealt with by the letter of the law. And again, I hope that the book, quite frankly, gets thrown at all these companies who are doing this to everyday people.
I want to add something on that. These tours, this type of tour that Tavis and Nationwide has been doing has been for the purpose of helping to educate people and bring attention to the need to understand your finances, understand the equations that are being presented to you so you can stand up and ask the right questions before you sign the papers. So I think that's very much the purpose of these tours at this very, very tough economic times.
My second question is, a lot of college students are graduating and getting out into the market, getting out into the real world, as they say, for the first time, getting from under their parents' wing and realizing it's no jobs available. The economy's crashed, they're going crazy, they don't know what to do. They even, jumping from communications or political science to maybe something that's more beneficial for us nursing. Would you suggest, or would you say that maybe entrepreneurship is a good option that's worth exploring for college grads?
I would always suggest that as an entrepreneur, that entrepreneurship is always an option. I found myself, I was giving a speech somewhere the other night, and this issue came up. And I made the point, and all of us in this room, of course, understand this, that when you have difficult economic times like these, when a lot of folk are not making money, and a lot of folk are losing jobs, there are a bunch of other folk getting rich. There are a lot of folk right now who are getting rich. I have a couple people on my staff in LA. I'm very much into home ownership, and I have a policy at my company that if you work for me and you meet certain conditions, I will help you get into your first home, and that's a whole other issue. Don't y'all all come? Anyway, I have a staff of a lot of young people, and I want to see them get on the road to wealth building. So So I will help them, as I've done over the years, get into their first home. And there are two in particular that come to mind who've been looking, everywhere, trying to get a home. And every time they get close to closing the deal or putting a bid in on something, one of these developers that you referenced earlier swoops down with cash and outbids everybody in the process. Because the price of land, the price of property, as we know, is so depressed right now. These folk who have the money are buying up all the houses from people who thought they had a little bit of something, and here was their moment to get in. They can't compete with all these real estate developers and others who have cash. And so they come in, get this house, do a little fixer up and do a little work on it, and they flip it 2 weeks later, and now it's on the market for $150,000 more than what they paid for. It's making it very difficult for people, young folks, to even get into homes. So I raise that because it underscores how difficult the times are for young people. I would also add to that that one of the things that I'm so passionate about where this tour is concerned, if I can bring your question back to the tour, one thing I'm passionate about is making sure that we get the word out that financial literacy is not just for people, shall we say, who are chronologically gifted, for older folk. It's also for young folk. This financial services industry, in the billions of dollars, goes after young people more aggressively now than they ever have. The competition in the industry is so stiff that the way to get ahead is to get new customers, obviously, as quickly as you can. New customers are who? College students. So when you get to college, you hit the campus. And every credit card company, every credit tool available is being offered to you. So back to your point, by the time you graduate, you're not just in debt, your mom and them and you are not just in debt for your education. You're personally in debt for all the stuff you put on those credit cards trying to get through school. So now you come out with a degree that you can't find a job with, to your point, and you're in debt for your education, and you're in debt now with all these credit cards, and I don't like the fact that the credit card, that the industry has been allowed to get away with, quite frankly, exploiting young people before they're ready to handle this kind of credit. So again, that's one of the things that we like to talk about in this tour. It's not just about people who are, who are advancing, but young people who are at the start of their career. But entrepreneurship, I say all the time, is always an option. There is no rule written anywhere that you have to go work for somebody else. These are good times, I think, to think outside of the box, to be risky, to try things that you've always wanted to try, to be creative. It's these kinds of depressed times that cause people to be creative in a lot of ways that we didn't even know we were capable of.
Thank you. And that's all the time